So Cami, very nice to have you here in Almost Sound. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
It's great to speak with you, and I have a lot of questions about your story and your music as well, of course.
Amazing.
So let's start from the very beginning. You were born in Brazil. You started your DJ career in Brazil as well.
Yes.
Tell me about some nice memories that you have of your home country.
I feel like I at those times when I started DJing, I actually think that for me, for example, was really like I went straight into techno from minute one, which doesn't happen very often with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So from the moment I went in, I already knew. I was like, this is the sound that I really like. So I didn't have like a transition from one sound to another. I just automatically just got like shown to go to these kind of events.
Mm-hmm.
And I started, of course, as like a party goer. And there was like a DJ at the time, which is called Mauricio Lopez. And he is the first DJ that I ever saw playing a long set. This was like the late 90s, I'd say 96, 97. He could really well like play between house, electro, and techno. And I think my musical formation, like my background, comes from that time, which is like kind of Jeff Mills and Carrie Leckebusch and Adam Beyer.
Mm-hmm.
So there used to be this party in Rio de Janeiro called Oops. And this is how I got in touch with this side of the music. And I was there, of course, every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I think it took a few years, like maybe like 3 or 4 years for me to start DJing. But by the time I was already like kind of start to DJ, I already was really into music. So I knew what I was going to follow. It was not that, oh, I don't know which direction I'll go or how do I do this. So I have a lot of good memories like from that time, because I think the parties, they really had a really crazy energy. Mm-hmm. And there was this party in São Paulo called Circuito, which for me is really special. It was actually also my first gig in São Paulo, which was my first gig outside of Rio. I used to be a resident at Bunker Club in Rio. Mm-hmm. And once I was at Bunker Club, the owner of Circuito Parties, he came and he saw me playing for the first time and was like, okay, you have to come and play for me. And, you know, those parties, they were like, I don't know, there was some really crazy energy that...
Okay.
I still want to see a party like this in Europe or anywhere else. And I've never seen it. 30 years of party and raving, I've never seen anything like it.
People dancing, what was so different and so special about it?
I don't know. I think there was this like kind of family and community aspect in that party that, you know, everybody kind of knew each other, but it was also a really huge event. It was not like a 500 euro like capacity party. I'm talking about 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people raves. But the vibe was just, I don't know, was out of this world. But I also think because we were so isolated in Brazil at that time, we didn't take things for granted like people here in Europe do. Like, because here you have like those parties every weekend. They can see DJ X, Y, or Z every weekend. Yeah. And there for us, it was a really special thing when someone was coming to play. So I think it's like all this like combination of like, you know, like opportunities and you know, like vibe. And I think also people in Brazil are very open. Mm-hmm. They are very friendly and very warm. So I think it was just, I don't know, there was just everybody, you know, were in the right place at the right time. And, you know, there was no phones at those times. So the vibe was completely different. Yeah. So I have a lot of good memories from Bunker, where I used to be a resident, and also Aloca. Consequently, I became a resident after, which is like one of the most important like clubs in São Paulo, like for queer community. Mm-hmm. It was really important. Yeah.
So this was like before 2000.
Yeah, this was like beginning of 2000. Yeah. Beginning of 2000.
There was not even internet. I mean, internet was such a remote thing. Nobody knew about internet either.
No, it was very like it was beginning. I think it was just kind of like slowly starting. There was this like I would say like online forum where people used to talk. Yeah. And that was the only thing we had. Wow. Yeah, literally. Yeah.
And so you said the parties were not that regular. So they were happening once a month, once every 2 months.
I think it was like twice a month, maybe. Yeah. I mean, there were parties every weekend, but more with local DJs. So when like a foreign DJ came, it was just like once or twice, like let's say a month. Yeah. It was not very often. So
Yeah. And what do you, if you remember, what
Mhm.
made you shift from I'm a party goer,
Mhm.
I'm a dancer, to I want to DJ?
actually, it was not me, it was my friends, because they were
Mhm.
like, you really should start DJing. And I was like, no, I'm not sure. And they were like, you were really into it. Because, I used to go to the parties and I used to just stand in front of the DJ booth and just watch.
Yeah.
This is actually how I learned how to mix. I say this to everyone.
Mhm.
How did you learn to mix? By watching and by listening mixes. No one taught me anything.
Mhm.
I had no idea what I was doing. When I bought the turntables, I was just like, okay, like what the hell do I do? Someone said to me, you have to count till 8 and that's it. And I was like, okay, I don't have like a musician background. I never played an instrument at those times. So for me, it was just like purely instinct how I learned how to DJ, which is also like for me, I find it super hard when people say, "Oh, can you teach me how to mix?" And I would tell them, "Well, I will, but the way that I learn is so personal because no, I was self-taught. Like,
Mhm.
so it's not going to be maybe the best way to describe it for someone, basically."
Very interesting. So you bought 2 turntables first. That's how you started. Mixer, 2 channels, I guess.
Mixer, 2 channels, and 5 records. That's it. I had to learn with what I had.
Mhm.
I had 5 records, and I actually had a funny story because the first ever record that I got given was by Stephen Roberts. I'm not sure if you know Acid Junkies.
Oh, no,
He's
no.
he's also called Evolute. He released on Jack's, like
Okay.
Miss Jack's label, like many, many years ago. And he came to Brazil. I think it was like end of the 90s, and he was playing at this event from a friend of mine. And then she was like, "Oh, this girl, she's gonna start DJing." And he gave me a lot of records that day, which I thought it was super lovely. And I was like,
Wow.
"Okay, this is really amazing." And it was funny enough, I think it was 5 or 6 years after he became the booker for FNA, which is in Eindhoven in the south of Netherlands. And at the time, he got a mailing like with like DJs that were coming to Europe. And in one of those, it was me. And he recognized me. He was like, "No way, this is the girl from 6 years ago that I gave the records to." And he
Crazy.
booked me to play my first ever gig in Netherlands. So
Wow. How many chances? But also, I think this person has had I guess, a big impact on you. Like,
yes,
he gave you the
yes.
records first, so it kind of like
Yeah.
somehow encouraged you
Yeah,
to play.
I know. And he's such an amazing producer. So for me, it's like it's very personal. It's such a cute story. Like every time I meet Stefan, it's like, wow, So yeah, it's super cute.
You
Super
still in touch?
Yes, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but he's always involved in like music. He has a record shop in Eindhoven. Like he's very glued on with stuff. Yeah.
Wow, very
Yeah.
cool. Imagine, does he know that he had this impact on you?
Yeah.
A lot.
Knows. Like, so that was like one of the cute stories that it's always like, oh, it's such a coincidence, like, okay, like how life just like move things around and you have no idea. Yeah. It's really funny actually. Yeah.
And also from his perspective, he probably did it out of whatever, like generosity. He was just like keen to help someone out, to inspire someone.
Of course.
But he couldn't know,
Of course, yeah. It's just like fun, I guess.
Were there other moments, other people in your music career that had such an impact on you?
Yeah, a lot. Dave Clark, for example. I was always such a big fan of like his sets, of his music, and of course he was like one of like my main inspirations. Like when I learned how to mix, I think it was Dave and Jeff. They were like for me like the two like DJs that I really looked up to. And Dave came to Brazil a few times, and I went to see him playing. But I think it was 2005. He came to Brazil, and I played with him. And that day, it was really funny because I had met him before, but it was very briefly. But that day I played. And when I started to DJ, he just didn't leave. He just stayed at the party. And he was there throughout my whole set because he said, I can't leave. I really want to see you playing. So after that day, he invited me to come to Europe. And then I came to do a tour and I played at his nights as well. So for me, it was really amazing, actually. I was just kind of like blown away at the time. I was like, how are the chances? How is that even possible? Really cute stories for me. So really.
Did you ever get the chance to ask Dave what he saw in you for the first time?
He saw in me, I think he saw attitude. He just saw like someone that just is doing for from the heart. I think like he just saw me mixing and he was like, well, okay, this is something, you know, like, I don't know, like, I think you just can tell within 5 to 10 minutes once you start seeing someone playing, like, and I think maybe that's the feeling that he had, you know. I don't know. Yeah.
Such an interesting story as well. and then so that was your first tour in Europe. That was the first time you toured Europe from Brazil.
Second tour. Yeah, that was my second tour. The first time I came to play a Rex club in France. Can't remember where else. Spain at Metro Club, which is an amazing club. Not sure if you heard of it.
Metro Club.
Metro, yeah, in Alicante.
Alicante, no.
Yeah, really, really nice. It still goes on. I actually played my second gig there now this year, beginning of the year, and this was like almost 20 years after my first gig.
Wow.
So this was like super incredible. I was like, okay, I'm coming back to this place. So it was really lovely. Yeah. Really nice. Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
And I read like reading interviews that you gave before that you had a bit of a hiatus, like you stopped being in touch with music in the early 2000s.
I did.
And you were referencing the minimal techno wave that kind of like stayed for maybe almost a decade.
Yeah.
What do you remember at that time?
Well, really strange times, actually, especially in Brazil, because I think, you know, we had this party called Circuit, which was a huge event, like a really big techno event. And there was a huge community. And then I really, it was very sudden. Like, I think music at that time, at like mid 2000, like maybe like 2006 or 5, became really, really hard. Like shrines came around, and I think that just saturated like so much.
Yeah.
And also there was like just too much of like loopy, like kind of sound around. And I think people just got really fed up. And then I remember Richie Houghton and Adam Bayer just started to shift the music. And then that minimal was like very glitchy. It's not like Robert Hood minimal. It was a very different minimal. It was like glitchy, tech housey. It was just like, it just really took over, and it was huge. And then there was also compact and B-pitch, and like that sound really, really took over at the time. And it was almost like there was none left of techno, because a lot of the DJs that were playing techno, they left to Europe because there was nothing in Brazil. It was like completely gone.
Wow.
So you either like you leave or you do something else, or you find a 9-to-5 job, because there was like nowhere to run, basically. It was really tough, like really tough times. Yeah.
Or you convert to the minimal.
Yeah. No.
The dark force.
No. I actually ended up moving to Europe. And then I was playing gigs here for a couple of years. But then, of course, the music continued to shift. And I think by that point, I was also saturated and I was a bit fed up with it. And then that's when I thought, okay, I really want to do something else, because I started DJing when I was really young. I was like 20.
Yeah.
So for like 10 years, I was like doing this. Like it started very quick for me. Things like took over, like within a matter of a year, I was like playing every weekend. So for, let's say, like a 21-year-old, that's a lot, right? So I felt like I wanted to do something. And at that time, I didn't end up going to university, because I just decided that I wanted to DJ and I want to focus my energy on that. So I thought 10 years later, I thought, okay, this is my time to actually do something that I would like to do. And also at the time in Brazil, let's say the early 2000s, there was no way I could study like sound in Brazil, like sound engineering, and just like really go deep into that, because there were no courses offering that for me. So I knew that, okay, this is the right time for me to do that. And then I decided to just stop DJing, basically.
And so that was when you moved to Europe. So eventually you said, okay, I'm going to, a little bit after, I guess.
A little bit after. I was already in Amsterdam. And then from Amsterdam, I moved to Bristol, and that's when I joined university. Yeah.
Got it. Because then Amsterdam, you said, okay, I'm going to focus on studying, move to Bristol. Yeah. Take a degree in, was it music production or?
Yes, music and sound.
Music and sound, okay.
Yeah, music and sound. And I was there for 5 years. So during those 5 years, I was really not in contact with things. I mean, I did play 1 or 2 gigs here and there. I did play at Treasure for all this time. But I was like a one-off gig. I was like, okay, just limit myself for a little bit. And I say this to everyone, do it. Take time off, because it's so refreshing. And I think by the time I came back, music had shifted again.
Yeah.
So it was completely new. there was like a whole new world of producers and the music was different. So it was really inspiring to come back to that. Like it was like, okay, things are back in place now. It just felt right for me, you know.
Were you producing already at that time before university, before you started?
Before actually my first contact with production, I think it was early 2000s in Brazil.
Yeah.
I went to this course where you would learn like just like kind of like programs like SoundForge and Cakewalk, but it was not really related to electronic music. So I was always super confused in the class. I was like, okay, this is really not my place. And then at one point I started to DJ a lot every weekend. And I thought, okay, this is not the right time for me. I need to wait for my time. I knew it was not my time. I was just enjoying DJing and I didn't want to overload myself. So I just decided, okay, I focus on DJing now basically and leave this for after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then once the time wasn't yours for DJing, you just said, okay, I'm going to invest time in studying. And that's where things ramp up with the production, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I was already in touch with production ever since because I had friends that made music, but I never really dived deep. You know, I knew stuff, but I didn't have the knowledge like to just like go deeper. And the funny thing is, I think the more knowledge you have, the worse it gets, you know, because you just know all the rules. And sometimes I think I didn't know these rules anymore because I was very naive before, you know, and it was a good thing that when you're naive, you just do things like, I don't know, out of instinct, you know?
You experiment
a lot, you know, without knowing those rules. Like, and when you know those rules, like, okay, no, maybe I shouldn't do that. I'm like, well, why not? No, you should try things, you know? So I say this to everyone, just forget about the rules, you know? Yeah, definitely.
It's especially with the music we like and techno in general, it's very nice to explore and go beyond what the rules of the conventions are, because there's no canon. Nobody can say the track is like, has to be made this way.
Absolutely. But once you go to university and you learn like sound engineering rules, you get those things in the back of your head, which, I mean, it's good to know. And of course you can apply that a lot of the time. It's really helpful. But for creative purpose, I think you just have to block it.
Yeah, you just have to go with whatever you feel.
You really have to block it.
Yeah. You seem to have a lot of patience as well and understanding of, is this something you developed over the years or it's innate in you?
I think I am generally a very patient person, and I'm that kind of person that I'll go until the end. Until the end, I never give up. You know, I'm that. I have this with everything I do. I'm just very persistent. Yeah. I only give up when I know it's like maybe too late. It's like you should have given up already, but I'm still there, you know. So I think it's from my nature, the patience and like this persistence of doing things, basically.
Which I think for any creation of sort is really important.
It is. It's very important. But honestly, like the amount of times I cried because of production, it's just like out of the book. Like many times I'm going to give up. Yeah. I'm done with this. It doesn't work, you know. It's hard. It was a long process. Like, I don't know, more than 10 years now. So,
well, yeah. Which again, is normal. So 10 years in the big scheme of things is very normal for most producers.
Yeah. How long do you make music for?
Probably 12 years to produce music,
Long time as well.
Yeah. So 2011, we're at 12 years that I started producing music.
Yeah. Like seriously, regularly. Okay.
And I don't do that full time. So for me, also, you need to kind of slash it by, because I do this, I have another day job.
Of course.
But I think for 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. And you have a musician background. You play instruments or?
I studied music.
Okay.
I studied a bit of singing, but very basic. So I know how to read notes, but I have very little knowledge about how to make music. I don't play instruments for real.
Okay.
Unless you consider computer an instrument.
Yeah. I mean, it is an instrument. Like, for a lot of people, that's how they make music these days. So
yeah, exactly. I think for a lot of us, it's like the way we make it.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
What was one of the hardest things you had to go through?
The hardest thing that I had to go through, I think this process was probably the hardest thing to go through. And I mean, I guess we all have that. Like, I still think I'm still going through it. You know, it's never ending for me. There's the music. One thing that I think I've learned during these years that was really hard is just to accept that, you know, things are not going to work at times. And because before I used to be very frustrated, I used to want to go to the studio and get music done, and I couldn't get it done. And I was like, okay, I'm never going to be able to do it. And like now I have a different approach. I just don't think like that. I just accept it. And I say, okay, it's not working today. So maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. And then it applies to both the inspiration and the technical part. So
everything. Yeah. There are days I'm just super tired. And if I go to the studio, I'm not going to be creative. I feel like I need to be in the right frame of mind to go there, to make it happen. Because otherwise, if I'm going there, like, if I'm not feeling well, I don't know. If a lot of people, they have this, when they are going through a hard period of their time is when they make their best music. But for me, it's like when I'm happy, that's when I get the best out of myself. And it's, I don't know, I think it varies from people to people. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And one interesting question for me is always, do you do anything to protect your inspiration?
I never thought of that, but I guess being happy, it's how I should protect my inspiration. And of course, I'm not going to be like happy like all the time. Like there will be like things that will happen, but I really try to keep things positive and just making myself happy, with what I have, and being grateful for everything. I think that's so important. And I think we, once we are in this life and we've been playing, sometimes we forget it, like that we should be grateful for everything.
Yeah. We're incredibly lucky.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess that's how I try to protect myself, by being grateful, I guess.
Yeah, taking care. And do you have any kind of spiritual practice, meditation, or do you spend some time just like appreciating what you have?
I did try to meditate for a bit and I stopped. I failed. So thanks for reminding me. Maybe I should go back to it. But yeah, I'm not like very spiritual, but I'm kind of like, I'm a person that I just accept when things happen. So I'm kind of like driven by, like, oh, it didn't happen. It didn't happen is because it was not supposed to be. I'm like that kind of person,
Yeah.
So I just trying to take things one day at a time, like, and not thinking too much ahead, because I used to do that. And I think that's when you get really anxious. It's like, oh my God, like in a month's time or what's going to be like, it doesn't matter, because a month from now it doesn't exist. It only exists today. So you can only do something today. Tomorrow it's another day. So
yeah, for sure. And I think in meditation, even maybe it doesn't resonate for you to sit down and spend 10 minutes in silence.
Yeah.
I think the other way of meditating is also just going for a walk. You mentioned that before.
Exactly.
And just feeling instead of being on your phone or thinking about the future. That's also for me a very good way of meditating and getting more into the present moment.
Yeah, just to disconnect, like literally disconnect. Also like listening to music sometimes. I have my headphones on and just go on a walk. That just really sends me off like to, I don't know, another planet sometimes. I'm just kind of okay, don't care about what's going on now. Just focus on this, basically.
Yeah, so much for me too.
Definitely.
Such a beautiful thing also. We're lucky we live in an area of Berlin where going for walks is normally very beautiful as well.
Exactly. Really. It's really nice around here. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And in terms of production, so you're touring a lot, you're playing a lot outside of the city where you live in. How do you balance studio time and gigs?
Okay, that's a problem at the moment that I am still trying to adapt. And I think this was always an issue for me, like as I said to you before, because I was DJing a lot and then I couldn't keep up with it, and I think this has always been a thing. So I'm still 10 years after, I think I'm still learning how to do it. And I think especially in Berlin is very hard because there's a social aspect of being in Berlin. We know so many people here. There's always something happening.
Yeah.
And, I talk to people sometimes, like how, I think that's very interesting to actually speak to my colleagues and everyone, like how do you keep up with it? Because it's something that for me is very difficult. And I'm still like trying to, for example, like after here, I'm going to the studio, like, so I have at least like 2 or 3 days a week. I need to be there now. Like
full day.
Not the full day, because I think if I'm there for the full day, I'm just not going to get the best out of it and I'm just going to burn, So I limit myself for like 3 hours. That's it. And then I tell myself, we have 3 hours, because I think limitation is something that really works for me.
Very interesting.
I see that with the records. I see that because I make music with hardware and I only use the same things to make music. And I think this is the thing that drives me. The limitation makes me work in a creative way. I don't know why, but it does. Yeah.
Fascinating. So essentially let's say 3 hours, 3 times a week.
Let's say, yeah. Like, for example, today I'll be there for 3 hours, and then I'll go on Thursday and I say, okay, another 3 hours. And, I'm just taking little steps, like just kind of like, okay, do a little bit today, do a little bit tomorrow. Don't go with too much ego, like, because when I was at university, I was in the studio from 10 in the morning until 10 in the evening. Seriously, when they used to see me, they were like, there she is again. I think they were like, whoa, like she's taking over the studio.
You want a bed?
Yeah, no, I made the best out of my time in university. I was there every day. I actually got locked in university one day. They forgot me there.
Wow. You were just like literally the only person staying there.
They left. They locked the building, and I was inside the studio. They didn't know that I was there.
No way.
And then I was there, and I was like, okay, it's 11 in the evening. Maybe it's time to go, because it's time that my session will over. Because you could rent the studios at the university, and they were really nice studios, right? And then I opened the door, and the alarm just started to go off, and I was in panic mode because I've never been in a building where the alarm went off that loud. It was deafening. Like, I had to start calling everyone. The police came, and I couldn't get out through the exit door, because if I did, they would think I'm a thief and they would shoot me, right? So, it's a really funny story that actually as well. So I was there all day, every day. I was really intensively in the studio. Like, I made the best out of my experience there. Really.
What happened with that time? So you got stuck.
I got stuck. Yeah, I'm glad no one got sacked, because the technician that should be there, like, I was like, oh my god, they're gonna sack him, like, because obviously it was like a big thing, like, but because we all knew each other and they all knew me, it was I didn't make a complaint or anything. I said, look, it's fine, it happened. It was all good. Everybody, like, people that worked there, they were so friendly and they were super nice. And we were laughing the day after, and the police came, and then, I had to talk to them, but, they said, look, because they had to be outside the door because it was locked, and I had to talk through with the police saying that I was a student that was locked in the building, and they were like amazed by it. So it was funny.
It's a good story. It's a great story.
It's a good story. It is. It's funny. Yeah, really funny. But
It's so interesting. And now you found out for yourself and your productivity. So if you limit this time, let's say it's 3 hours, it could be a bit more, a bit less. But does it ever happen to you that you are hitting the third hour and you feel, oh, I have so much inspiration?
It always comes in the last hour. That's when things start to happen. It's so funny. And I know that from the times when I was at university, because I was there the whole day, right? So I was just like breaking my head the whole day. And after I've been there for 6-7 hours, the last hour was always the hour that things start to happen. And I was telling myself, there is no point in me being here for this long. I should just limit, just limit the time and see how it goes. Yeah.
And when it happens to you, you have this like flow of inspiration of the third hour, you stop and you go home, or because you want to end up in a high note, or you continue?
Depends. Depends. I think once things are flowing, and if I have more time, I will stay.
Okay.
But I would like to just stick to my own rules. Like, I think that's good, and it works. The limitation always works for me.
Yeah.
Because when I have no limits, that's when I don't know what to do. Like, it's just like, wow, I'm lost, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and probably also helps you with having a balance and schedule.
Yeah, definitely. Need a balance for everything. So, yeah.
It's such an interesting topic, because I think in Berlin, there is a lot of people who would travel every week. Maybe they play 1, 2, 3, 4 gigs per week.
Yeah, it's hardcore. Yeah.
It's hardcore. And some of them still manage to have time for family, partners, and for production, which is impressive.
I know. It's a lot of time. Like, it's just how you juggle between everything. And like I said, this is still something that I'm still learning. Like, I don't think I will ever stop learning what works for me. But I think from next year, I'm going to take time off. Like, after January, February, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off. And I was thinking I'm going on holiday. But at the moment, I'm kind of like, no, I actually should go into the studio. Yeah, because I think I would benefit for just not having gigs for like 3-4 weeks. I think I would get a lot done. Yeah, because the time I got the most done was during the pandemic. Yeah, I got so much music done. It was impressive. I would say my production, like level, like of like getting things ready was really good.
Yeah, and I think for me, this also because it compounds over time. So if you have the 3 days that you have, if they're together, it's better than having them like one day traveling one day, because if you have them together at the third day, the 9th hour is much more productive than having it two separate from the rest.
Exactly. That's for sure.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Because then you can get stuff done. You know?
Very interesting. And one thing that I saw in another interview that you gave was that Berlin has always inspired you to find your craft, define yourself sonically.
Yes.
What parts of the life in Berlin, maybe it's the city, maybe it's the people, maybe it's the clubs, what inspires you still now?
I think everything. I think meeting people is probably one of the most inspiring things for me, and just like exchanging ideas, like exchanging like workflows or how do you work. And, you know, I think there's such I felt so welcomed when I moved to Berlin, and I've never, maybe it was my own experience. I was lucky. I know other people had other experiences, but for me, when I moved here, I felt I've never been as welcomed as any other city I've lived before. And I think it was just kind of like people just embraced me. Hey, you come, you're like part of this, you know. I didn't feel excluded, and it was just amazing. Like, actually, I don't know. And I always wanted to move to Berlin since I've been here. The first time was in 2002. I said, one day I'm going to live there. But it never happened somehow. I ended up in the Netherlands and then in the UK. And whilst I was studying, Brexit happened.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. When I finish, I'm gone.
You thought Berlin?
I thought Berlin, but it wasn't immediate. And I ended up coming here like... I can't remember. I think Jack was playing Chris Muller at the time. And then I came with Jack, and then I was like, okay, this is it. Like, that's when I made my decision. I thought I'm going to leave, and this is where I'm going to go. Because I thought of maybe going back to Amsterdam for some time. And then also like Dave, my friend, lives there. And Dave was like, come back to Amsterdam, like Dave Clark. And I was like, I don't know. I think it's time for me to start something new. I wanted to start fresh because I was also coming back from like a long time not DJing. And I thought, okay, I want to try something new. And I thought Berlin was just perfect, basically. It was my moment. I said, this is the opportunity that I was looking for, you know? So,
So you probably embraced it, and perhaps also your energy when you came here was, I want to be here. I'm so happy to be go where say come.
Exactly. Yeah. It was just great, you know. And I almost didn't come, like, because when I finished university, I also had this side of me that I wanted to perhaps start working as like a tutor and like just kind of more towards like the side of like teaching. And I applied for a few jobs that I got to the end, and it was always like when they were selecting between two people, they gave it to the other person because they had a musician background and I didn't. And that kind of really made me angry. And I said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going back. I'm going to Europe and I'm going to DJ again. I think it's like, I felt like it was kind of like life was telling me, this is what you have to do. You know, like, it's like I said to you, I am very like this, you know, if it didn't happen, it's because it's not meant to be.
Yeah.
So I just listen to my own intuition. I think that's very important. Intuition is something that we sometimes we reject and we don't listen. And I think we need to. It's so important, basically. Yeah.
It's super important. And do you, for example, like, do you have intuitions or some feelings that are very strong around your music right now?
I mean, not that much towards my music, because I feel like I used to see my music as something super, super serious, like, because I used to put so much hard work. And like I said, now I'm having this other approach that I'm just like, I'm going to the studio, I'm going to play, I'm going to jam, because this is what I love to do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love to go there, turn my machines on and just play. I absolutely hate having to make arrangements. Like, I'm terrible. I literally, for me, it's like a pain in the ass. It's like a suffering. I'm like avoiding it, but I know I have to do it. And now I am changing my workflow in the studio. I bought a mixer with more channels on the desk, because at the moment I have 8, which, like I said to you, the limitation was really good. But at the moment right now, it's really annoying me, because what I want to do is I just want to press record and have everything separate, bang on time, so I don't have to spend this time doing the arrangement and, like, you know, editing, you know how long this takes. So, and I really don't like that part of the process. For me, it's just like the part that I really am not into it. Yeah.
Interesting. So when you're producing, the starting point is almost always a jam.
Yeah, always.
It's a jamming, no idea what is going to come out of it. You just compose on the go. Yeah.
Sometimes I might have an idea of what I would like to do in my head, but I just like to go freely and not like have any expectations and just see where it takes me.
Yeah.
It's like I said, just going with the flow, like taking my intuition where it's gonna go, you know. So
yeah,
I'm that kind of person. Maybe because I also have like a DJ background. I didn't start as a producer, so for me, I'm kind of like, yeah, let's just experiment with it, you know.
Yeah. And then what happens? So let's say you have a take of 1 hour, 2 hours. Then you have an entire take with different channels. It's 8 or maybe 16 now, and then you have all these instruments. You put them on Ableton, Pro Tools, one of the
Ableton,
Ableton, and then from there you will find a section that is a potential track, and then you rearrange the adjust arrangement.
Just loop, cut, like, and then reprocess it. I do that a lot. Like sometimes I work from like 2-3 sounds, and then I end up making new sounds with the same sounds. You know, like just with the limitation again. I like to try to just keep it compact. You know, like I think at the moment I'm trying to be as simple as possible. Like and. You know, before I used to make things really complicated, like just like, oh, I have to add this, I have to do this. And I'm like, no, less is more, and just keep it simple. And, you know, I think for me, once the recording sounds good, your main point of start, which is that, then, you know, things will sound good and your mix down will be much easier, you know, much easier.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's a bit like cooking. If you have good ingredients, good fish or vegetables, whatever you want to eat, and then you don't need so much sauces and oil and things on top.
Exactly. But I mean, whatever works for me, for someone else is different. You know, I know a lot of people that they do some insane stuff in the computer, and I'm like, how the hell do you do that? I have so much respect, because for me that approach would never work. Like I just like, for example, like you know, Temudo, I respect him so much with his like production. I think his music sounds amazing. Like, and really the stuff that he does it's absolutely insane. Really.
Yeah. It does a lot in the box, which means also the sound sample is probably like lower if you want quality than an analog device, but still it sounds amazing.
It sounds amazing. You know, it's like I said, for me, I have so much respect, and I'm like, wow, you know, like this is incredible. Like how people work in different ways and they just make it work for themselves, you know?
Yeah. In terms of, so let's say you end up the month of November, the month of December, you have 8 tracks you're happy with, you arrange them. What happens after? You select some of them, you send them to labels, you have your own label, of course.
I have my own label, yeah.
Is there a process or do you work with a schedule? I want to send tracks to a label by this date, or is I have the tracks and then I think about that later?
I think having a deadline for me really helps. When I don't have a deadline, I'm just like postponing, you know, mañana, you know, like South America, like,
2024.
Exactly. So the couple of times that I had to hand in music, they all said you have a deadline in 4 weeks. And I was like, okay, panic. I have to get it done. And then you get it done. You have to get it done, right? So your brain just shifts into this mode that you need to get it done. So you just do it. So I think a deadline is very important at times, especially when you have to hand in music for other labels. To and not like prolong, you know, because, you know, I have like people that ask me for demos like for like 2 years, 3 years. I've not sent them because they're not telling me, look, tomorrow. Then I'll be like, okay, maybe I should do it now. You know, if you leave it up in the air with me, it's gonna take time. I will do it. I'm just not gonna, you know, maybe not focus my energy like that hard into it.
You prioritize other stuff.
Yeah.
Are you sitting on a lot of music now?
I have some stuff there. I am working on new music at the moment, which I have this like 6 or 7 tracks that I have there, but I'm not sure I want to release them. Because when I did them, I don't think I was in a very good headspace. I think they sound good, but it just don't know, there's something about it that I'm kind of like, I'm not sure. So I'm in a really good moment now, like with everything. I just feel like my life is good. So I feel right now this is the moment that I should be making music, basically. So I'm making new stuff, and I'd rather release the stuff that I'm making right now, you know?
Okay. Do you think is that because they remind you of that state you were in before?
Possibly, yeah. Possibly it will remind me, like, and maybe I'll just be like, okay, I'm not sure I'm feeling it because,
Yeah.
you know, I have those memories maybe attached to it, perhaps. But I'm just kind of like, I'm not that keen on it, you know?
Yeah. And maybe they will never be released, or maybe they will be released in.
Maybe they will, yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like maybe I'll listen to it in a year's time and I'll completely change my mind, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know how it goes. Like,
yeah.
Important is for me to not listen to them. Once I made it, I'm just like, I can't hear it anymore. I'm sure you have that as well.
Yeah.
So it's so hard, yeah.
Do you work with other people, other colleagues, friends that listen to your stuff?
At the moment, yeah. I mean, like, I'm always in the studio. Like, Jack is, because I share the studio with Jack, and we bounce from each other all the time, you know, and it's super great, you know. Like, me and him, we can sit for an hour and just talk. Like, just talk. And then I listen to his tracks, you know. At the moment, we are, like, selecting tracks for this VA on our label. So we go to the studio and then we listen to tracks and decide which ones are the one that are the best ones. So we have like a really good, like, how to say, relationship, and like when we are very similar in our music styles. Like we really click a lot. So we're always bouncing from each other, you know, always like, you know, like, I listen, what do you think of that? You know, and then I do the same. And like, you know, I've been in the studio with other people as well. Like, so we've all been there. Yeah. Especially when I was at university, I had to be in the studio with a lot of people.
And of course, work super closely.
Yeah, I had to do like a live show with like 2 other colleagues as well. And that's how I actually ended up meeting Jack.
Yeah, okay.
Jack, he was roommates with one of my friends at university.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so one of my friends in my class said, hey, you and my friend, you guys need to meet because you're really going to click and you're really going to connect. So super nice, yeah. And then Jack used to come to university with me, and then we were making music there. You know, like I taught him a lot of like hardware stuff at the time because he didn't really know a lot, and then he taught me all like his other kind of like skills, like with like computer and how to make sound. And it's always when you find this synergy is very difficult, because I've been in the studio with people that you know, it's nice, but when you have this synergy, I think it's really special. Like, really, yeah.
It's very special, and it seems like you two have the synergy also in working on the label, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially.
Absolutely.
When did you start Unterbags?
2018, actually. Yeah.
Were you already in Berlin that time?
I was in Berlin. That's when the idea for the for the label actually came about.
And E and Jack, was also in Berlin at that time? Or?
Also in Berlin.
Okay.
Yeah. Also in Berlin.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And how are you running the label? So, for example, do you split tasks amongst the two of you?
He looks after a lot of like Bandcamp and things, and like we do a lot of admin as well. Like, I mean, we don't really split. We just kind of have this like sort of like really easygoing like communication, because I think we are like, you know, we are very good friends. So there's no like, okay, you have to do this and I do this. You know, it's kind of like, hey, like, shall we sit down together tonight and have a chat? You know, like, hey, shall we meet up for this? Maybe we'll go for a coffee and then we can talk, or let's meet in the studio so we can listen to the tracks. You know, it's very like informal, I would say. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. But then, of course, you share the studio, so you have a lot of touch points during the week. So you bump into each other, you work together.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. And how do you think your label helped you getting visibility from promoters compared to releasing on other labels? You released also Motevolver, you did also other BAs, you participated. How does your label stand compared to the rest?
I mean, I don't think I like to see it like that, because at times when I always wanted to have a label when I was living in Brazil, for example, but it was impossible, right? In Brazil, there was no way that I could do it. There was no way I could press records. It was impossible at the time. So it was like a distant dream for me. So once I moved to Europe, I said, okay, maybe it's now, but then I ended up going to study. And then when I moved to Berlin and I started DJing again, I said, okay, this is the right time. You know, I'm in the right place. I can get it done here. And initially, I had the idea to get the label running so I could release my own music, so Jack could release his own music, and perhaps with people that were around us. And I still have this idea quite strong in my head, but when I feel there are artists that I'm really attached to the music, I want to release them.
Yeah.
It has to be something really special for me. Yeah.
Okay. So it still feels like it's a big artistic creation. There's no real plan in that, and you like it like this. It's an outlet for your music.
It's
mainly.
very open, going with the flow. Like, like I have ideas for the next couple of releases, but I should be doing a record soon as well. But it's not scheduled. Like, we have we have 2 VAs, and that's so far, it's what we have, like, for, I don't know, maybe like the next 6 months. That will come out.
It seems also you use a lot of your intuition too. This is the music I want to release on the label.
Yeah, I like I said, I don't like to see my label and compare to anything, because I feel it's very personal for me, and whatever I will release, it's not going to resonate with you or with him or with anyone. Like, I'm just doing it because I really love it. We know how it is, how to run a record label, and it's just so hard these days. Like, no one's going to make a living out of that at all, so
I still think, like, I started to appreciate a lot the function of the label is really to let you be free.
Exactly, that's the idea, to not be attached to, when you're sending demos to labels, they can be quite picky sometimes, and like, oh, maybe, like, I'm not sure about this particular sound or whatever, and it's like, I really appreciate feedback. Like, I had some feedbacks that they were very constructive, and they were actually very good, but some feedbacks I just don't think it's necessary. Because when someone wants you to change your track, then
why would you?
Why would you? I mean, okay, you can change maybe a bit of the arrangement, but when they say, oh, that sound maybe needs to change, that's very hard, because this is the idea down, and it's difficult.
It's a creative choice, and again, like, there's no a rule to make a techno track. Otherwise, everything will be the same.
Because then it's almost like, the label owner is asking you to make a record for him or her. You know. So it's like, okay, then you're not really taking my input. You're actually asking me to tailor a record for your, for your
catalog.
taste.
Yeah, sure.
So what's the point? Then they might make it themselves. I think that's just how I approach it, So when I work with a label, I work with a label because I know the people behind it, and we have the same approach. When there is this approach, I'm not, I'm not really, I don't click with it.
For example, I think you did a remix for Planetary Soul System.
Yes.
Very beautiful track also.
Thank you. That was actually super funny, because when Luke got in touch with me, I think he messaged me through Twitter, and I didn't see his message for like 3 weeks.
Crazy.
And then, like, he suddenly was like, "Hey, Kami, like, I've tried to contact you," and I was like, "What?" Like, I was like, "I'm really sorry. I'm not really great with social media, as you see." And he was like, he initially wanted me to do a remix for him, and then he asked me to do a record. He asked me to do, because he does this parallel series on Motive Over, I'm not sure you know, which is like a split record with 2 people. And then I ended up sending him 4 tracks. And he said, actually, no, I want to do a full record because I really like the 4 tracks. And I said, okay,
let's
do it, And this is what I'm saying. Like, like, when you have this relationship with someone, he just heard it and was like, this is perfect. Nothing, you don't need to touch anything. And I was like, okay, this is it, This is how I do it as well. If someone sent tracks to me, I would never be like, oh, maybe you can change that sound, or maybe, I would possibly do like a feedback on the mix down, like, because of course we want the sonics to be better, right? So I think that's very reasonable to say to someone. But I think when you're talking about sort of arrangement and composition, it's a little bit more complicated.
Sound choices. I mean, in the end, it gets super personal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And talking a bit about your DJing, so you DJ with vinyls only.
I know.
Which is, it's a hard choice. It's a hard choice these days, especially when you travel.
It is, man. It's not for the faint-hearted. Let's say that, really. Like,
for sure. There is a lot of problems that you're gonna face wherever you go. Like, even in the best clubs, there can be so many things that can happen that can make your experience suck.
I know.
What does that give you emotionally?
I think for me, the whole thing about, because I see a lot of people now, they're like, I'm playing records. And I super understand that this is important for them to promote. But for me, I don't feel like I need to do it because I've done it for this long, right? For like, I don't know, over 20 years. And I think these days it changed, because before, vinyl was the only media that you had. So everybody played records. And now it's hard to find the right setups for it. So every gig I go, I have to sound check, for example.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am in this, every weekend I'm in this adrenaline sort of mode. Like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? But I somehow think I bounce from that. I realized that I told that myself because I think it just keeps me going because it never gets boring. Because I never know what's going to be there. Right? And this kind of like lack of knowledge of what's going to happen keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
So it's never boring, you know?
Do you have, it's never boring, it's always exciting. It's a battle already.
Yeah, it's purely adrenaline. That's why I say, like, I think I enjoy this whole suffering / adrenaline, like, let's make it work. Or even if it doesn't work, you have to make it work, you know? And I think it's just very also related to my own natural being. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
That's super interesting. So you're seeking a bit of the thrill when you're playing.
Definitely. I don't know. Like it's just I really enjoy it. It's nothing to do with what's better or worse because there's this whole huge debate every time. Vinyl, digital, and I'm kind of like I really don't like to take part in any of that. I'm really out of that. All like for me is a personal choice. Yeah. It's what works for me. It's nothing else. It's what I enjoy. I tried to DJ with digital for a couple of months, actually when I moved to Berlin, I was like, I did a few gigs and I was like, okay, it's really nice to actually not have to travel with a record bag. That was like one very positive point of it for me. And you don't have to like sometimes check in the record bag. You don't have to go through queues. You don't run the chance of turning up to a gig and your records not be there because that actually happened with me last year. I had to play with a random record bag in a gig.
Wow.
We can talk about that.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you. Don't worry.
So, like there are a lot of advantages of not using records, I think, for a lot of people. And I think a lot of vinyl DJs that they don't play records, they always trying to convince me, yeah, but it's so much better. You shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, man, it's just what works for me. I just enjoy it. And that's it. I'm going to do what I enjoy because I tried the other approach and I just didn't vibe. It didn't resonate with me.
Yeah. And if it works for you, chances are that you're going to accept anything that comes with that. Like traveling with heavy bags, potentially losing bags, having a shaky.
It's way more fun.
DJ booth, exactly.
It's way more fun. It's way more fun. It's way more. It's unpredictable. No one knows what's going to happen. It just keeps it exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so going back to the story, what happened?
Exactly. Like,
did they lose your bag? Like, did someone lose your bag?
Yeah, I went to this gig in Bordeaux in France. And when I turned, basically I had a connection. So I was flying from Berlin to Frankfurt and my flight from Berlin was delayed. So when I got to Frankfurt, I had to run to get my flight. I made it to the flight. I fractured my toe. I made it to the flight. Oh. I think that was the weekend that I started to fracture my toe because it was a whole big weekend. So I made it to the flight, but my record bag didn't because I checked in my record bag because it was super heavy. And when I turned up in Bordeaux, they said, well, your records stayed in Frankfurt. And I was like, okay, well, what happens now? It's not like I was in the main city. For example, if I was in Paris, I think it would have been much easier to get it sorted. But because I was in a very difficult location, like the promoter was like panicking. I was like, okay, we need to find people with records and then start to call like friends of friends. And then first they brought like one record bag that I was like, okay, this is really not going to happen. Like,
no, so basically they brought you someone else's record bag for you to choose records from.
It was difficult. It was very difficult. And I said, okay, guys, this is really complicated. And then the panic continued. And then they got another record bag. And I said, okay, this is a bit better. There are a couple of records here that I can, play. And then they brought another record bag. And I was like, okay, now I think I can do this. There were a couple of records that I had. So that made me feel a little bit comfortable as well. But of course, it's like, you're playing blind, right? Because you don't know what you're selecting, right? So
adding to the thrill.
I have to say, I think this was one of my best sets ever. I still don't know how it Cravo, like Pedro, like from View and Cravo, he was playing the gig with me and he was like, Tommy, how the hell did you do it? He was like, you smashed it. And I was like, I don't know, man. I think the whole not knowing what I was doing just made me play in a different way. Of course, there were moments that I was like, okay, this track, and then you play, it's like, oh, maybe not that one. And then like little thing comes that you're not expecting, but it was just fun. And it was just like, yeah, I don't know. There was something about it that I really enjoyed it in the end. Like the whole stress before the gig, and then also like when you're playing, and then you also actually, you get to release that.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like a lot of energy. I think just I had to put out that day.
Wow.
Yeah. No, you just have to do it. Like, and it was fun.
That's an amazing story.
I do have an idea that, you know, like I had this idea actually with Fadi once that let's play a gig together one day, that I will pack your records and you pack my records, and we don't know what we're bringing for each other. And I thought that was incredible. I was like, why? This should be a fun thing that people should do, you know? Because it's just like makes things, you know, interesting, like fun, and yeah, I don't know, like, and we ended up not getting to do that, like, but I would not yet, but I have to work on this idea actually now that I remembered about it. So yeah, it's like just trying to make things like, you know, different and
also more fun in a way, and kind of release the pressure of having to have this everything is so serious.
Exactly
in the end, this is fun. This is like a lot of this is fun for people who come. It's fun for the should be fun for the promoter, should be fun for the DJs too.
Exactly, it should be fun, right? So if you're not having fun, then forget about it, then give up and get another job, because this is what I say to everyone. When I quit, I was not having fun. I was not really feeling it. So if you're not feeling it, just take your time, just get out. Step out and go do something else, basically.
Would you be, so now you think you to take some time off next year, like at least a month to focus on production?
Yeah.
Are you ever afraid that now you're getting a lot of demand for gigs that can go away because you take some time off?
There's always the whole thing, I don't want to say no, because, you know, once you're rolling, like you want to keep it to, you know, like kind of like that's, I don't know, like that level. But I think your mental health, it's also something that's very concerning. Like when we are traveling this much, it takes a toll on our health, you know, the lack of sleep, and it's just so stressful, you know. So I think it's important to have a balance, and we really need to take time off. I think it's something that I have been learning. Like, really.
Do you feel you have balance now in your life?
Definitely. I'm definitely getting on that level now. Like from, I think after, you know, the pandemic was super hard for everyone. And then last year was like, this was crazy. Everything came back super strong. So many parties, so many things happening. And I think there was this really like intense energy that people were like locked at home for 2 years, right? So I think everything was just too much. And I think now we're getting out of it now. Things are calming down.
Yeah.
So I think my balance is like stabilizing again now.
Stabilizing, and you mentioned before sleep is very important. Having time for the studio, having time to take a break.
Yeah.
What about your friends? Do you have like close friends that take care of you when you're in Berlin?
Definitely. I have a lot of good friends here. I actually just enjoy the social life here so much. And like I said, this is my struggle now, because I have to make priorities. It's like, okay, I want to see my friends, but I also need to be in the studio. So I need to like, you know, distribute my time wisely.
It's particularly difficult if your friends are not artists, and then their work week is kind of shifted to compare to what you do, right?
Exactly.
Because they tend to be more free in the weekends. You're more free in the week.
Exactly. That's hard.
It's very hard.
That's very hard. But there's always a way to figure it out, you know. So especially because they're always going out as well during the weekend, and then you end up going out with them. So it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
How do you see your life in 10 years?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. That's a tough one, because like I said to you, I'm trying to focus on the moment now and not thinking ahead. I don't think I will be in Berlin in 10 years, or will I? I don't know. I have a feeling that maybe I will be elsewhere. But time goes so fast these days that it's just also, like I said, you know, next week will be 6 years that I'm here. And for me, it's like, wow, you know, it passed so fast. Yeah. So it's difficult for me to say how I will perceive myself in 10 years. I will still definitely be doing music. Like somehow, I think I'll still be DJing, to be honest. Maybe I won't be in Berlin, but I will still, that's what I would like anyway. But who knows what happens, right?
It's a long time.
Anything can happen. I'm not that kind of person, you know, like, let's just go with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm very curious.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Really, just go with the flow and see where it heads, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And a couple of more questions I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
What is capturing your attention lately? It could be new artists, new genres of music.
I mean, like, I think there are quite a few artists that are very interesting at the moment. Like I think Noah Bach is a very interesting artist. I can see him developing a lot. He's also super young, which is incredible, I think, for his level of production, also his level of dedication, like seriousness. And, like he's like the kind of person that I see myself when I had his age. I feel like it's very similar. I was super dedicated as well. There are other producers that I really like. Like there's this producer from Austria called, I actually never know how to pronounce his name. Sedevs, Sedvs.
Yeah.
I'm such a huge fan of him. And he's such an incredible producer. Like he's been around for a few years now, but he's not very well known. And I think for me, this is something that when I really resonate with the music, I want to get these people and I want them to ride along with me, because I'm like, look, they're so good that they really deserve like credit, like, and these people need to be credited somehow, either through their tracks, paying the tracks. And I think like, there's just a lot of talent out there that doesn't get the space.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot.
Yeah, attention. I think it's a challenge for a lot of artists because then the industry is overcrowded. There is so much music, so much great music. So you're competing with people's attention that is in many different places.
Very, very, very.
In your view, what is an effective way for an artist to stand out potentially and find their own audience?
I think they really need to just focus on like their own way to express themselves in like just like be themselves, like I feel like a lot of the time people don't take time to do that, and they just start following what's current and what's popular. And I think if you really want to stand out, you really need to work on it. You really need to work on your skills. You really need to work on your knowledge, because you might be able to make it, but the longevity is something very different.
Yeah.
That's when when you build up, and it takes so much time. Like, and I think people need to really, really work on their skills and really work on, like, just trying to make that whatever they do, it's unique in a way,
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
And, what can be? I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's hard because sometimes people. I know that happens to me as well. Happens to many people, right? They feel they need to fit in a certain tribal trend.
Yeah.
Especially because now the social media become an echo chamber.
Absolutely.
So whatever is trending at the moment, it feels if you don't do that, you're excluded.
I know. It's terrible. I mean, I'm kind of like a little bit of a black sheep with that stuff. I'm kind of like, if everybody goes to the right, I'm turning left. So like, I've always been a bit like that. And it's just me, and I think it's just a way of I don't know, like of reacting to things. And I feel like it's also, techno is a lot of that. And I always perceive techno as a movement, as a punk, like kind of, and I miss that at the moment. This is gone for me. I don't see artists with this, this kind of attitude, like, and it's, I don't see that a lot anymore. This rawness, I miss it. I miss it a bit. Like, I think people are just very comfortable, and I think we need to take things up.
We need to make the discomfort the game.
Yeah. And just like get out of the comfort zone, and just like, I think social media made everybody super comfortable as well. Like, really. Yeah.
Because people, I think the problem is that people perceive that they know what works, and then they try to imitate that as the only way.
Absolutely.
We don't take so many risks. I say people, but it could be everybody.
I think I'm only here because I took a lot of risks. And that's what I can tell, like, to people, I took risks, and I always took risks from minute one. Like, I'm still playing vinyl. I'm still taking risks every weekend, right?
Yeah.
So
you still do?
Yeah. And that's what I bet on that. Like, it was like, this is how I feel about it. And maybe it's just because I'm a very passionate person as well. And just, like I said to you, right, this whole love and this whole feeling that techno and punk, they have this similarities for me. That's always how I perceived it. And I just think things are very comfortable right now. And we need to make it punk again.
Yeah.
Techno needs to go back to punk, I think.
Yes. I think it makes sense. And for a young artist, they are for example, they're not in Berlin. They live in a city that doesn't have a flourishing techno scene. They don't have so many other connections. It's harder for them to meet like bigger DJs that can mentor them or can be inspiring them.
Yes.
What do you think is a good way for them to push their own way, find their own really authentic way to express themselves with music?
I mean, I guess we have social media these days, right? So I think he could use that for his advantage. I know it's hard to get heard in social media when there's a sea of people, but I think if you really have the right mentality, you will get there. Like, you really need to be persistent. And I think it's important for people to understand that, you know, you might hear a no, or people might not reply you, and you can't give up.
Yes.
You know, and I think a lot of people, they just get hooked up on that. Like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do it. And it's just like, no, it's your own mind that makes your own limitations, you know? So just do it, you know?
Yeah.
Just stick it in your head that you're going to do it, and you will. Like, you know, I think we are in charge of our own future. You know? Yeah. That's it. Like, so just have to be persistent and just, like, I don't know. Is there another word for it than persistent? No, I would say / ambitious as well, like in a way, you know, to pursue what they really want to do and what they really love, you know?
Yeah, and patience as well. Like,
a lot of patience, like a lot of patience. So he can use that for his advantage, you know? And I think if you really want to do, there's always a way. You find a way, and then you end up meeting people, and then this person connects you to someone. We know how it works. Like, it's not magic, right? And it's not like a mystery. We all just need to dig it around, and like, how do you do that? You know, it's like a puzzle. How do you sort out a puzzle? You have to sort it out puzzle, but you it's hard, but you do it, you know? So,
eventually you do it if you stick to it, and you just, when things don't work, you need to keep going.
Exactly. Absolutely. They just how it goes, I guess. Like, it's tough, you know? I think when I started DJing, it was a completely different way, because for me, it was kind of like word of mouth.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I've seen this DJ. Oh, I've seen this girl. She was really good, you know? It was always like, you know, and it was really weird at those times, like I'd say like 20 plus years ago, there were not a lot of women like playing like very regularly, especially in South America. I used to turn up for the gig, and they were like looking at me like, she's playing. I'm not joking. It was like that. She's playing. 1 hour after, wow. You know, and I'm like,
yeah.
Because they looked at me and they were like, nah, she can't play shit.
Because they were thinking.
It was like that. Nah, she can't play shit. She looks too nice, you know. She looks too like, you know, like too perfect or whatever. I don't have tattoos. I don't have piercings, you know, like, 'cause, you know, that was also a thing at the time. It was very popular, you know, it still is. Like, so I think people used to like be very judgmental at times, like especially with women.
Yeah.
And then it was always a shock, you know, so.
Great thing, because then you're like, fuck you, you know. Like, it's a real fuck you.
Hello. Thank you.
Do you see that changing for the better now?
Yeah, definitely. Thankfully, because, you know, like before, I mean, I didn't really get a lot of trouble, like, but this was always an issue with me, like that people would be like, oh, she's playing? Wow. In a way, it worked in my favor, which is ridiculous to say, but it did. Because people would be shocked. They were like, okay, wow, you know, like this is actually proper, you know, serious or whatever you want to call it. But I think now it's much better, much, much better. I think, you know, the mentality changed, and I think people will like appreciate, like, there's more balance, you know, like with, you know, like with women, like with men, you know, like in general, like with, you know, like with the scene basically. So it's much healthier, I think.
Yeah, it's a great sign. I think also living in Berlin, we see that
Berlin,
changing month by month, and it's great.
I think Berlin has been an amazing place actually for that, to just like help other cities to follow as a model. Like, because I think people come to Berlin a lot on things. So
yeah, it's a great thing to see.
Yeah, definitely.
And a couple of final questions.
Yeah.
What drives you in life?
What drives me in life? I love dancing, let's say. I actually do like ballet classes and things like that. Like, I'm really, I think I have a lot of rhythm inside me. So I think I connect my love for dance, for music. It's all together, you know, like it's one thing pulls another. I also like, you know, enjoy like just like cinema and arts in general really drives me a lot in life, really. Sports as well. I like to exercise. Keeps me happy.
What kind of sport do you do? Any group sport?
Dancing, go to the gym, like I do yoga, but not like anything like just like playing tennis or anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Movement, a lot of movement.
Yeah, a lot of movement. I like to move, you know. Moving keeps our minds like sane, you know. I say this to everyone. Like, you're feeling like a bit funny, just go exercise, go out, go run, you know.
Even walking, what we were saying before, that, you know, you get out of your thought groups.
Yeah.
You just go into your body and it feels life is different.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like you're just releasing like endorphins, you know. So it's good for your body. And
so if you have one day where you can do anything but being productive, you cannot even think about music, what would you do? Well, actually, I would sleep. I love it. The most underrated thing in the world.
You know, it's something that I don't do a lot. Like, but you know, like I said, I would like to go do sports and like, you know, go out for dinner, like do something really relaxing, sleep. Yeah, I need to catch up on my sleep. Like, that's something that I actually, do we even catch up on our sleep? I don't think it's possible, is it? Once you miss some sleep and that's it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've heard, there is a lot of like TED Talks and like a lot of information online that say that apparently you don't never catch up on your sleep unless it's like the day after. Exactly. I don't know. There is a part of me that has an incentive to believe we can catch up on sleep because of the life we chose. Yeah, we're screwed. We're screwed. Yeah, I know. I keep thinking I've got so many sleepless nights, you know. So what's gonna happen like when I'm like in 20 years' time? My neurons will be just not working anymore. Hopefully not. Yeah, I guess sleep actually, like that's great. Something that I really need to do. Sleep important. Yes. And one question. So, any projects you are particularly excited for? They're coming in the future, label or otherwise. There is a project with my label that I have the VAs. There's 2 VAs with some really great artists. I can't speak about it. Okay. I have something really exciting in February that I can't yet speak about it, but you will find out soon. I'm sure. By the time you watch it, you probably know. Looking forward to it. Yeah, and I'll just continue working on music and gigging. Sleeping, maybe. Sleeping. I also have to put it in the routine. Like, definitely. Going out, seeing friends, partying a bit, not too much. Just balance. Very cool. Yeah. Balancing. And the very last question, we ask every guest on the sound to tell us what question we should ask one of the next guests without knowing who they're gonna be. Okay, give me a minute. I'm thinking. I would say, why did you choose this path in life? Okay, and there is of course a question for you. What brought you here today to do this interview? Well, you got in touch with me and I thought, I really like that. Actually, I enjoy talking. I don't get to do this very often, which is great. So I thought this is a really nice opportunity to sit down, talk with someone in a very informal way, like, you know, a very relaxing conversation and just, you know, maybe bounce some ideas. And also, like, hopefully inspire some people. And, you know, because I think this is how it goes, isn't it? Like, you inspire people, people inspire you. I get this a lot, like, oh, I'm really inspired. You're like such an inspiration. I'm always thinking, am I? Like, so, I mean, I'm grateful, of course, you know. So whatever, like, I can help other people, it makes me happy, you know. Amazing. And it's like the person that gave you the minds 20 years ago. Exactly. And they probably didn't expect that. They just did it out of kindness, sharing something with someone else. Exactly. You took something away from it, which inspired a lot of decisions in your life. Exactly. It's crazy when you think about that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Pleasure. And see you on the dance floor for sure. Yes, definitely. Yes.